Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jesus in a Dream podcast, where we believe with Jesus in a Dream, anything is possible, nothing is impossible, and the possibilities are endless. I'm Caleb, and this is Zach.
Hello.
And we want you to enjoy life and build God's kingdom. Hey, if you are a listener to this, whether your first time or maybe you've been here for a while, would you do us a favor? And on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, would you give us a review? Give us a 5 stars if you like it. Give us no lower than a 2 if you don't like it. I'd appreciate that. I'm just kidding. Be honest. Do whatever you need to do. And I know that takes some time, but that really helps us, and it helps us to help more people, and that is what is most important. And so if you're listening to this on YouTube, if you could like and subscribe so you never miss an episode, because we have plenty of things that we're going to be talking about, trying to help you, again, enjoy life and build God's kingdom. Today, I have one of my best pals, one of my best friends for a very long time on the show, Mrs. Alyssa Eaton. Alyssa, how the heck are you?
I'm really good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming down all the way from Coon Rapids, Minnesota.
Coon Rapids.
Good old CR. And yeah, we're just going to have a discussion today, and we're going to get right into it right now. So Alyssa, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what your family's like, all of that good stuff.
I'm Alyssa Eaton. I am married to an amazing dude. He's the best. We've been married for 7 years.
What's his name? What's with people coming on this
his
podcast
name is Luke,
and not wanting
Luke
to
Eaton
say their spouse's name?
He's my husband's name. He's the best.
He's
a
the
youth
best.
pastor. He's really cool. Yeah. I am a mom of a 20-month-old boy. People who don't have kids, that's like a little over a year and a half.
At what point do you stop referring to your kid's age in months?
I feel like 2 probably, but the reason we do is because like each month is so different, like developmentally. Okay. So it's like a 16 or 18-month-old who's a year and a half is different than like a 20-month-old developmentally.
I believe you.
Anyway,
I still count my own age in months.
Oh yeah.
Where you at? What month you at?
Where are you at?
Now I have to do math.
You have like a tally in your room. But yeah, I have a son. He's awesome. He's the best. He's full of joy. And I'm a hairstylist in South Minneapolis at a salon called Pompadour. Shout out Pompadour people. And yeah, that's kind of my life.
Yeah. So Alyssa is my hairstylist. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see how fresh I look right now. You can see how fresh she looks right now. She's got that blonde sunflower look right now. Looks great. Actually, she cuts your hair too, doesn't she?
Yes, mine as well.
Wow.
Yeah, she makes Zach look like Jesus on the reg. So
I gotta get into cat grooming. Then we could have the whole shebang.
Arthur would look. If you're watching on YouTube, also Arthur is squarely in the frame, and he's just refusing to move, which is great. We love having him here.
He's stoic, just hanging.
So Alyssa, she works at a pretty high-end salon. She's really good at what she does. She's been doing it for a long time. You, right out of high school, right? Went to hair school.
Yeah.
Which was in
2013.
2013. So you've only almost been doing it for 10 years. You've been working at Pompadour for how long?
I've been working there for 7
years. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, like I said before, Pompadour is it's a pretty high-end salon, I would say. It cost me a lot of money to get my hair cut if she didn't cut it for free, which she is so nice to do for me. Thanks, Alyssa. You won't get it for free if you go there, but that's not the point. The point is that you do it at a very high level. You've been doing it for a very long time. And obviously on Jesus in a Dream, we are often talking about like the starting point or in the middle. And kind of what we were talking about before we came to the studio to do the podcast was how like you are right now living the dream.
Yeah.
And you would agree with that of she has been married for a while. She has a kid. She has a great career. She is at the peak of, not peak of her career, but you're doing it at a very high level. You have a great client base. You're financially secure. And so this is a little bit of a different angle than what we usually take, but I think it's also an important piece of life as well, is that for most of us, when we're talking about the dream, is we want to get to where you are currently at. And how old are you? 26?
20, I'll be 27 soon, but
26. And so Alyssa was blessed to, find what she loved early. God has like blessed her in her early 20s in order for her to get to where she is now. But all the same, what I want to talk about today is, how do you still stay desperate for Jesus when you're on the mountaintop? And I think that's just as important as all of our conversations about being desperate for Jesus in the valley, because this is what it's all about, is Jesus. And so if you abandon Jesus at any point in the journey, then you're doing something wrong. And so I guess my first question to you, and kind of what we can talk about, is like, how do you still stay desperate for Jesus when it seems like, on from the outside, and I know this isn't totally true, but from the outside, you have a lot of what you did dream about or what you wanted, and maybe you can tell us that story a little bit.
Yeah. It's been kind of wild, just my life in general. Every time I look back, or I'm like, oh, I haven't really done much, or I haven't, my life hasn't been this like series of intense like scenarios. I look back and I'm like, oh, actually, like it kind of has been. So I think there's power in that too. Like when you get to the top, or when you get to a place where you are secure and you're not striving, like looking back and being like, wow, I've been through a lot. But anyway, I would say like my journey as far as my career, even my family, has been different than I thought it would be. In the way of like, I know we kind of talked earlier, but in the way of like, when I was first starting my career, I was like, I want to be famous. I want to be known. I want to do hair in the movies, and I want to do hair for fashion shows, and I want to do that. I've wanted to do hair since I was like 10. Like my mom got me a mannequin head, and, I would do updos and I'd practice on that. I was always the prom hair person, all through high school. And so I knew I wanted to do that. And kind of, I thought I wanted to be famous. I thought I wanted to work really hard and be like a career woman and like live in New York City and, do all that. So all through school and all that, that was kind of like my goal. And so kind of getting to where I am now has been a series of events and seasons of God kind of revealing to me like, hey, that dream was rooted in insecurity, actually. And that dream was rooted in selfishness. And that dream was rooted in something that is superficial and something that is just not eternal, And I think kind of leaning into that was new for me, and just being like I married a youth pastor. Like I'm not about to go live in New York City, which is the best thing I ever did. But so the dream kind of shifted and almost became like, oh, that was my only dream. Now what do I do? So I really focused on just doing my best where I was at, I think, and without even realizing it. But all that to say, where I'm at now, I feel has been a kind of season by season stretching and growth through some really difficult seasons and some really challenging seasons, and some seasons that I really wrestled with God, some seasons of loss and just confusion, and a lot of things kind of sprinkled in to these seasons of like, oh God, that's what you were showing me. Oh, that's like what, that's where I'm supposed to be. That's what I'm supposed to do. And so finding a salon that I love, almost right out of school was huge. And I've been able to grow there and, just succeed there. And I really feel like God has been blessing it and has been doing that. But yeah, I feel like my life has been less about this is the dream and I'm trying to reach it, and more like season by season. Like God is like showing me new things in this season, and then I kind of learn these new things and become this like next version of myself. And then there's a new thing that I'm like growing in and learning in and leaning into. And even this past week, I've been so excited about like, I think all of us are on a journey, right, of like becoming the best version of ourselves so far. You know, like we're never the best, because that obviously is what we're working towards. But even this week, I've just been excited. Like I feel like God is stretching me and growing me and kind of showing me more of Him. And sometimes that makes me feel lost, even in like, I don't know what the dream is. I don't know what's next, but I know that I'm kind of stepping into whatever He's doing and teaching me in the moment. And I think that's how I kind of stay excited or stay like, oh my gosh, because there is so much more than what I have and what God's given me and what He's done in me. There's more to come, and I know that, and there isn't like an ending point for like my dream, you know? So I think that's kind of, if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's really good. And I guess the follow-up that would be like, as on the other side of that, is how do you allow yourself to not get apathetic, I guess, towards like just getting so content. Like I think contentedness needs to be held in the same hand as like as dreams and like looking forward and going like, I still need to grow and I still need to become more like Jesus, and that requires me to be uncomfortable and go into the unknown. How do you combat, and maybe you don't have to, but I think for a lot of people, like I know for myself, like when things get comfortable, it's a little harder to like read my Bible or like pray, because it's like I don't have problems to think about. So like, not saying that you'd never have problems, but on the same line of questioning, I guess, is like, what do you, like maybe just practically, what do you actively do to say like, nope, Jesus is everything, so I'm going to force myself into the unknown? Yeah,
for sure. That's a good question. Something that Luke and I, my husband, kind of are aware of at all times in our life and our relationship and where we're at is like, are we too comfy? Like we kind of talk about that often and are like, okay, like how's our life going? Are we really comfortable? You know, and we both believe that we should be growing and there should be movement. And so we don't want to stay in a comfy place for too long. Not because we hate it, because we love it, but because we know there's more, you know? And honestly, before we had our son, we were very comfy, like too much free time, like too much, there was nothing, I guess, hard happening. We were both really doing what we loved, and we could just like do whatever. We were so flexible. We both kind of have weird scheduled jobs, so we weren't like 9-to-5 people. Anyway, so we were in like a really comfortable season and too comfy. Like I was like, oh, this should be like different probably. And I think the Holy Spirit like gives you like an itch almost, like gives you like I should be being challenged, or like I want to do something new, or I want to like stretch myself. And so my husband, more than me, was like, I think we should have a baby. And I'm like, ooh, okay. I'm like, I don't know. But for me personally, that was like okay, we are so comfortable. We need something challenging in our life. Is that the thing? I don't know. But it felt like jumping off a cliff in my soul. Like literally was like, okay, like I'm just going to like have faith and we're just going to do this. And it's crazy. Like God just takes you and He's like, you need to change. You need to do something. You need to do something new. And then you jump off a cliff in your soul, and then it's amazing. So I think in our life, we have just kind of always been aware of that and aware of like, okay, we want to be growing and we want to be challenged. So, and even now, like he's 20 months old. And so it's been like a year and a half, or let's say 2 years, like total of this new season. And now lately we're like, okay, like we need to do something new. Like we need to be challenged again. So I think it's just being aware of where you're at and kind of doing an inventory of like, is there anything in my life that is growing me? Because I don't want to stay the same for too long.
I think that's super good, because like being aware of the fact that you're in a comfortable situation, I think is so huge. And just being like aware enough to see, hey, we're not like growing, right? Like you said, like you're comfortable and you're enjoying that. But at the same time, you're like, we're too comfortable to a point where I know that our capacity is not being fulfilled. And I think that is, honestly, I think about like Abraham and how it talks about like he goes to this land and he stays there for several years, and you know his household grows and his flock grows, you know, like all these things, and then he picks up and moves again. And I think that's like a lot of how God like leads us through life, is he moves us to a spot. That initial move is like, oh, big change. Okay, what is this new place? Then you settle in for a while and then you grow. And then I think you just grow in like confidence and just maturity. And then when you're like, I think at that same point for Abraham, when God called him, he was probably like, you know, yeah, I've been kind of waiting for like some, and I think that's exactly right. Like you said, the Holy Spirit gives us an itch. And I think it is that like, I think the Lord prepares our hearts and our minds so that when he says, hey, let's do something new and let's move. And I think being aware, like you said, I'm aware that we're too comfortable, because I think it's really easy to see that and then resist that and go, I don't want to move. I'm going to hang on to this comfort for, you know, until I die. And that's where like you see people, I think that's where a lot of like bitterness and selfishness comes out of. And you see these people who you break their daily routine once and their whole week is offset because they're like, oh, my comfort is disrupted, you know? And it's like, I think it's how people who follow God should be prepared to like be uncomfortable. Because right, like strengthening and growth happens in a place of comfort, but it also happens, I think, probably even faster in a place out of comfort. Sure. But I think the way that it feels fulfilling to move through it is when you go between those moments, a moment of change and then a moment, and because God says he gives you rest. And I think like that was that moment, right? It was like, okay, we're very rested now, right?
Like we were extremely rested.
But yeah, I think I'll jump back to actually something you said earlier, if there's more you have to say on this. Because in your story, you said like you kind of knew you wanted to do hair from an early age. And I think my story's similar. Like I really love storytelling and I really loved film and video and all of that stuff. So it was kind of, a lot of people struggle with finding out what they're passionate about and really defining what that is. And then in your situation and my situation, it's like I kind of saw that right away. So then you just project forward, right? You're like, okay, I know this is what I want. I'm going to project forward. What does this look like in a career based off of just what normally a career looks like in that area? But then, like you said, God is kind of changed that vision and was like, okay, yes, you could go out and do that. That could be what you go after, but that's not what I want you to, you know, that's not going to be the goal. And so like my question is then, what do you do when that happens? Because you said it's a season by season changing. And I know this is for me, it's like I get my eyes set on something and my brain goes, okay, this is how the passion and the dream are going to work together. It's going to look just like this. And then I get excited. I start working towards it. And if that is something that's not 100% on with where God's leading me, then I evaluate that and say, okay, maybe it doesn't look like this. Yeah. But then at that moment, you have to like make that decision of where, like, I guess my question is like, what do you go back to? That's like, instead of completely throwing everything out the window, it's like, I don't even know what I want to do anymore. If I'm not going to do, you know, if I'm not going to do like the celebrity hairstylist, then I'm not going to do anything with this at all. And clearly that wasn't a dream from God and we're starting from scratch, but clearly you're not starting from scratch every time. So I guess, what's kind of that baseline that you fall back to? Yeah,
for sure. I think, well, first of all, I was a teenager when starting this career, right? I was like 18 and I was like, I think for me, the dream was more of an attitude problem. And this like desire to just like be the best and, you know, whatever. And I obviously knew I wanted to do hair, like I said. And so I think starting out my career, it was just working towards, okay, I have to do my time. I have to like work, I have to start small. I have to, you know, work my way there. I want to put myself in positions with people, whatever, to like be the best. I looked at like fashion school actually also in Minneapolis. And I was like, do I want to like go that route? Or, and I think, I think in my head, I was like, I'm going to start small and I'm going to get my job at my salon and all these things. And I had worked at another salon previously in Wisconsin for about a year and then I moved here. But honestly, like, I don't feel like I had a big moment of like, oh, that's not the dream anymore. Like, I didn't have this like crazy, breaking down of, all of these ideas I had. I feel like it was a slow and kind of like subtle heart change in me, where I didn't need what I thought I needed anymore, in that aspect of how my dream was more of a selfish pursuit, right? I thought I needed that. I thought I, needed that to belong and all these things and to prove myself. And so I feel like for me, it was like over time and over a few years, just having like this, like God really just changing my heart and changing like what I was content with, and just like, oh, like actually I'm succeeding at this salon. Like, why would I leave? And obviously, like, again, like I got married, like I have another person that I'm, working with, and I can't just be like, peace out, I'm going to New York and I'm going to chase my career. And so, and we got married really young. I was 19 when we got married. And so I think that kind of like slowly shifted my desires, I guess, as far as my career, and almost maybe to a point where I was like, well, I don't know. I think I don't know where I'm headed, and I don't know if this is right, and I don't know, but I'm just going to do it. And maybe I'll just be mundane, and maybe like, maybe I won't do hair forever. And kind of just this season of like, oh, I don't know. And then I started really loving it, obviously, where I was at, and kind of God was kind of fueling that fire. Like, do really well where you are and then see where you go, like focus right here and like do your best right here. And so I kind of focused on that. And there was actually a class, a hair cutting class, because we take those every once in a while. And it was the celebrity hair cutter, okay? And she cuts like Ryan Reynolds hair and all these people, like all the men in Hollywood. And I was like, oh my gosh, so excited to go. And like, oh, this is like my dream. This is what I want to do. And I actually, in that class, I was realizing like, oh, like this isn't my dream anymore. Like as I was like there watching and hearing what she had to say and all this stuff. And it wasn't like, it's not like I wasn't excited anymore, but I just was like, oh, like I don't have this like longing to be like, be her and like do this stuff. And so that was kind of the point, and this was probably like, I don't know, 5 years ago, but that was kind of the point where it was like, okay, I don't think that's my dream anymore. And it was okay. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool for you, but I'm actually good, And so that was kind of a cool kind of pivotal point in just my mindset. And then I really dove into just like where I'm at and like how to, be the best in my career where I'm at, the best I can be. And so I feel like I never lost the dream of doing hair. And I always, like, I know I want to do that. But it was more of just like the direction, I guess, I go, if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think I say this on the podcast a couple times now of, God cares about you more than you care about you. And God knows what you need and want more than you do. And he loves you more than you do. I'm talking about yourself. But I think that is a really hard piece to surrender. Mm-hmm. And when we're talking about like our dreams and passions, those are sometimes the hardest things for us to go like, okay, God, I'm going to trust you with this no matter what it looks like. Yeah. And I think your story is one clearly of you allowed that process to happen, and for you it was a process, and I think for some people it is like a pivotal moment that they can look back and go like, that's when I surrendered, and he had to break me down. And like for you it was like, oh no, it was a slow shifting like heart change. And but I think the point is the same in both scenarios, is that God wants us to surrender the things that we care most deeply about. And we can do that, and we can do that with confidence. And that's why we have this podcast, is to encourage people into that moment of saying like, yeah, you have dreams. Yeah, you have passions. Yeah, you have things that you care about. You do not care about them more than God cares about them. And they're better in, this is a saying that I've started to develop, like even for myself, like the things you care about are better at Jesus' feet than in your hands. And I think your testimony and like our stories like reflect that we thought we wanted all of these things. Who knows? Maybe someday God will give them to us. But at the end of the day, we want what God wants for our lives more than what we want for our lives. And then God honors and respects us and loves us and cares for us by saying, okay, you remember how you thought it was going to happen like A, B, C, D? Well, it's going F, Z, Y, X, R, T. Now you get your D. And then it's better than ever.
Yeah.
Like, if I had done this under my own strength, it probably wouldn't have been this good. And that was something you had said to us at the coffee shop of like, I look back in my life and it's like, this is better than I thought.
Yeah, seriously. And I think sometimes we think it's like going to be this huge sacrifice. And for some people it is. It is this moment of like, I have to give this up. I have to sacrifice that. And it's hard. And it is hard either way, evolving and growing and changing. Like, that's a hard process. That's not like, oh, one day I just woke up and I was different and I had none of the same thoughts, But I guess in my story, it wasn't necessarily a sacrifice that I made. It was just like God showing me and filling, holes in my soul that were like, oh, actually, yeah, like this is good and this is better. And yeah, like I said, like looking back at my life, I don't know what I imagined my life to be. I wouldn't call myself a dreamer just in,
Isn't that
in
a
regular
lyric
life.
to a song? Isn't that like a Beatles song?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, anyways, go ahead.
I don't know. I have no idea. But I wouldn't call myself a dreamer naturally. And so I'm not a person that has like, oh, in 10 years, I want to be here. Or this is what I imagine for my life. Like, I don't, other than being famous in New York, I had no like idea of what I wanted my life to look like. And even that, I didn't know what that would look like. But, yeah, so I think it's almost been like a piecing together of God being like, this is your new dream, but I have no idea what it is. Even still, I'm just like, he's kind of piecing it together as I go. And it's so like, wow, like God did that. Wow, God, you fulfilled that in me. Oh, like you gave me that. And I didn't even know I wanted it. And like, I feel like I am going to be like 75 and I'll like look back in my life and be like, oh my gosh, like this was my dream. And I didn't even know it. And so that's really cool. And even like I said, I've been married 7 years. And even in these 7 years, and I guess the years I've been married have been the years I've been an adult. Let's be real. So it's the same. So the years I've been an adult and grown and changed and the journey God has had me on, I am a very different person than I was when I was 19. Still me, obviously, like we don't change completely, but super different. I'm a very different person than I was a year ago. I'm a very different person than I was probably 6 months ago. And so I always think like and get overwhelmed like, oh my gosh, when I'm like 70, I'm going to not even recognize who I am right now. And that is what excites me, honestly. Like that gets me excited. And just knowing like I maybe don't have like this vision for my life or this like goal or this dream, but I know like all the pieces are going to fill in. And then I'm going to look back and be like, whoa, how cool. So, yeah.
I think like, I'm going to just say, I think a lot of people listening or watching and hearing you say, I don't have like this crazy 15-year plan and I just, listen and be obedient. I think a lot of people, that's going to give them anxiety because it's like, how do you not have like some crazy long-term goal, right? And I think that's awesome because I think the way a lot of times like God leads us, and I kind of had this picture of like when you're on a ship and you don't know where you're going, it's pointed one direction. You're like, oh, look at that coastline over there. Yeah. That's where we're headed. And you're really excited. And then you get set on that. And then the ship like turns and you're like, what? I thought we were going that way. And then you like round the corner and then you see what's around the other side that you're sailing. And then you're like, oh, this is where we are going. I was really excited to go just because that's where we were pointed. And it's like, that's not where you're going, So, for sure. Or like in an airplane, it's like you're flying and you're looking out the window and you're like, oh, we're going to fly over these awesome mountains. And then it turns and you're like, oh, my heart was set on going this direction. It's like just the flight path goes the other way. Right. And so I think that's a lot of times like how God leads us. And I even think of like I'll just reference back to story writing because that's what I know is like when you are trying to lead your readers, your audience, and even your characters, you lay and you're like, okay, I want them to think this way so that when I reveal this huge thing, you're like, oh, that's perfect. That's like, it makes sense, but it's unexpected and I didn't see it coming. And I think that's a lot of times how it is to follow the Lord is like, he's not going to lay out the entire step-by-step plan from now until you're 70 years old. For some people, I think he does, but other people, he's like, just trust me. And that's like the whole, like just walking with the Lord, the light on your feet and on your path, is it just shows the path in front of you, you know? And so I think it's just, it's that like, I'm going to give you the dream or the goal for this month or for this year. It's like, focus on that. We're going to go towards that because I'm just going to maneuver you through something. And if I'm maneuvering you through something, all of a sudden you're aiming left and it's like, whoa, what are we doing moving left? I don't want to go left forever. And it's like, we're not doing that. We're going to turn
Just
to the
for
right. And it's like, so it's just like that, I don't know, like the youth group challenges where they like blindfold someone and you go through the obstacle course, you know, and it's like, just listen to what I tell you as the next thing. If I tell you there's a chair and a hula hoop and a thing, you're going to be so confused. Just follow one a step at a time.
Sense at the end.
Right. Exactly.
Totally.
But yeah, so I just think that's awesome to like, and you're just like growing and understanding that. So if the point comes in your life where there is a really big change, you're going to be like, this is nothing new. Like we've been making small changes and direction changes our entire lives. And so when the big thing drops, it's like, hey, I think God's calling us to do this. Yeah. It's not going to be like, whoa, we have never done something like this. I don't even understand how we're going to do this. Like, that's going to be so, it's going to change our lives. But this, you're like, our lives have been slightly changing every day, every month. So it's not going to be like, it's not going to just catch us completely off guard. But yeah.
For sure. And I don't like, this isn't everyone's story and this isn't everyone's personality and this isn't, because some people, God does give a vision and does give a dream to work towards. And I don't, like, it hasn't been, every day is just great and I just trust the Lord and it's just the best, like there's definitely, like, it's hard and there's definitely seasons of just wandering feeling, and if I'm honest, I would say that trusting God and like, I know God has a better or has like the plan for me. That's not always what I'm thinking about. I'm not, I'm not like, the season's, really hard, but I know that, we're veering left and we'll come back. And, I don't always have that mindset, but I can say in moments of clarity, looking back, I know that that's happening, So yeah.
That's good. Yeah. I think that is, just the faithfulness of God in your own life where you have now, like you said, matured in your adult life to go, what God has done it before, he'll do it again. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a big deal. Like, it's still going to be hard, but it doesn't have to be a big deal. And I think that's admirable. And that's something I had to learn too of, not every decision you make in life has to be a big deal. And when we make it dramatic and like, it just produces anxiety and you get overwhelmed, when God is just saying like, move left a little bit, and you're like, but I can't. Yeah. And like, I think becoming a mature believer is being quicker to obedience, and being quicker to obedience means not freaking out for so long. And when you don't freak out for so long, then you can rest in the joy and the peace and all of that good stuff. And we're almost out of time, and I kind of want to highlight, you said something earlier that I think is so, it is the goal. And that is, like you said, when I am 75 years old, I want to look back and said, I lived the dream. And the whole essence of this conversation has been, what I would interpret as is, you have found out the truth in that what you do is secondary to who you are. And what you do is you are obedient in who you are as you are a child of God. And you understand that like your relationship with Jesus always comes first before like what you do. And then it makes it easier to sacrifice whatever it is. And I would just say that to encourage any listener that, I understand that I am like a very unique person in like the vision and the dreams and like and Zach is as well. And we want to have people on the podcast that, come at life in a different perspective of being obedient to Christ, but doing it as who they are and not as like who me and Zach are. And even Zach and I are different in a lot of ways, but we do share that trait of, we can see the future and we know what we want to do, and we know God's behind us, and we know that the more is that direction, and so we're just going. But I also know, like, you and so many other people are just going like, I'm just going to be faithful right here and right now. And that is who you are, is like who we are in that moment of like, we're all just trying to be obedient to Christ. And so no matter what it is that you do or what you dream about or how you dream about it, just know that if you're being faithful to God, that's what matters primarily. And so thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. I don't know do you have any other closing remarks that you would
I
like
do
to,
just want to say one more thing. I know we can't go over time.
No, that's fine. We got time.
So I just want to say, like, every small decision or big decision, like, might come with anxiety. Like, I am someone who sometimes I get paralyzed or get so much anxiety that I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing? Like, is this right? I have no idea. And I don't want it to sound like that doesn't exist in this kind of, I guess, dream. Because there's weekly, there's moments that I'm like, well, what are we doing? You know? And so that's normal, but God has been so faithful, and he is just, you know, drawing us and drawing me and just being like, hey, just like, be like, do it afraid, right? Isn't someone says that? I don't know, that's someone's tagline, but like, do it afraid, like, do the scary thing. And it's okay that you're afraid while you're doing it. And that's when I feel like in the moment, I can't always enjoy it, or I can't always be like, wow, that was the best. But then later on, that's why I've been saying, I look back, like, then I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, because of that, here I am. And so anyway, yeah, just want to say, like, it's okay if you're anxious about it, but also God has something so much better for you on the other side. So do it while you're anxious, and it will just
give your anxiety to the Lord.
Give your anxiety to the Lord. Yep. Do it. But
do it anxious. Don't stay there.
Don't stay there. Yeah. Cause on the other side, it's great. But sometimes we just have, the overwhelming, like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I would say I have no idea what I'm doing.
Cause you just to add on to that, the Lord will make you come to the end of yourself. Yes. And that is scary.
Yeah.
But that's where, again, being quicker to know that's where he begins can relieve that. Yeah. And so that is a promise of the Lord is peace. So, man, love you so much. Thanks for coming down.
Thanks for having me.
So Alyssa, I mean, I guess I didn't talk to her about this before, but I know she's pretty booked out. So I don't know if people can even can they?
They
do you have okay, sweet.
For the holidays.
For the holidays. All right, sweet. If you want to get your hair done, tell us like what your favorite thing to do is. Like, who can you help best by doing their hair?
All right. Well, I love doing hair color, blonde hair, balayages, that kind of thing. So anyone that wants just, I don't know, their hair colored probably would be the best.
Nice.
For me. It's the kind of people I'm looking for.
You do wedding hair or no?
Long, gorgeous dream hair. Yes, I do wedding hair also.
Okay. Sweet. So if you're getting married,
hit me up.
We'll put her email and not phone number. We're not putting her phone number on the internet. Sorry. But we'll figure out a way for you. We'll put her like Instagram. She has a hair Instagram and stuff like that. Know that she has helped you. And like I said, we're a community here at Jesus in a Dream. And so if you can help her in any way, she would appreciate that. But thank you so much for coming down. Learned so much. Hopefully you helped people. We know you did. Zach, anything else?
That's all I got.
That's all we got. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.